Hello and welcome back to LIVENODING. In this episode, I want to talk about this capsule primitive and curve with rounded caps for geometry nodes from Bartek Moniewski. You can chat with the developer on Twitter. Basically, you put a price and then you can purchase it, or you can just put in 0 and then give a donation later. What you're gonna get is this capsule blend. Let me show you. Okay. So it comes with a little bit of documentations. If you open the blend, normally I think he set it up with a grid snapping, etc. You might want to turn it off. There's a bit of documentations. So capsule adaptive and capsule. Okay, capsule and capsule adaptive. This capsule has a bit of options that you can play around with. So it's pretty cool setup that you can use. For example, let me save this very quickly so I have my own version. Let's say if we want to use all of them, you can actually just select all of them and then copy and bring it into new blend file. So it's clean and there is no snapping. So let's just save it again. So capsule test. Okay, cool. So let's say you want to use this little capsule generator. So it's pretty useful. You can, for example, create a curve and then go to edit mode, delete everything, and maybe like draw something. We can pull geometry nodes, create this is a curve objects. We can just use it. The obvious one maybe like curve to points, which gonna turn the curve into points. You can adjust the curve points, and you can instance on points. So what you're gonna instance is maybe like this guy over here, which is C3. Just plug this into the instance. Okay, now we have rainbow capsules, and you can I think you can use the rotations to align the objects. Oh, actually no, these rotations, sorry. So curve points, rotations. Okay, cool. You can scale as needed. So now we have this rainbow sausage. So yeah, that's one of the functions. They're all still gonna work procedurally. And there's, I think, there's a couple of options with the bevel and then etc. So it's really handy, basically. So this is the capsule mode, and so let's take a look at the others. This is also another capsules. This one bevel, example with bevel. But the one that's interesting is this guy over here. Capsule adaptives. Okay, capsule adaptive, and then there's a lot of option here, etc. It seems to be using the curve modifier just to achieve these shapes. So this only works like for one curve. In this case, it is using this curve over here that we can modify. So I believe, okay, if I delete all this curve and then just draw a new one, yeah, the curve will confirm. So it's using this curve modifier just to turn this object into like a worm. So this is adaptive curve. One unfortunate thing at the moment with geometry nodes, let's say you start with this curve and you are generating this objects over here and you want to replace or you want to modify this Bezier curve, if you add like geometry nodes and then you start to do something like this is a no kind of like a limitations at the moment. So if you put like noise, vector math, this one, you can normalize the noise, plug into the offset. So what's gonna happen, I think, let's say if I do that, if I did something crazy like that, you know, you can see this curve doesn't modify the worms, unfortunately, because if you are using geometry nodes, the output is gonna be polygon mesh. Okay, that's too bad, but you can use SVerchok add-on actually just to grab this curve and just to bring it in. Get object data, get the Bezier curve, and then use post-modifier. So it's the output of this is gonna be like a new objects. The easiest is to use polyline viewer. So just plug in the vertices. So we're gonna have a new curve. So this curve is gonna be the one that's modifying our worms. Just replace this with a, yeah. So we modify this curve using geometry nodes, and then SVerchok convert that back into curve. So this geometry nodes, and yeah, we can modify the curve, right? We need to update, however, we need to like manually force the updates, or I just run the frame. And so if we use like a time, plug into the W, you can see the one that SVerchok doing, it's to convert it back into curve, and it's gonna translate into the geometry nodes, so it affects the capsule itself. Okay, so that's yeah, pretty weird that it works that way, but still can be handy, especially if you really need these objects to be like a real curve to modify the previous objects. And you can do the same thing with armature as well, and IK spline IK. You can use the same technique. SVerchok actually have its own way to generate curve, so you can output like a proper NURBS or Bezier curve, and you need to use this special curve type. So you need to, for example, I think use cubic spline. So you pass in the vertices from that object and then pass it out. So now we have this new objects that's being generated. Oh, cannot see the objects, or because it's on the same spot. Okay, let me do something crazy like a random value. Random number, plug into the radius. Okay, doesn't seem to work. Oh yeah, it does works. So there's like, so points coming into SVerchok, and it's generating this alpha curve. So we can go back to our capsule objects and replace the objects with alpha. Okay, so if we now let me see. Okay, we have noise. If we use a vector combine XYZ, what am I trying to do? Let's see, if we just use this noise to offset the curve. Okay, this is what we got. Pretty weird, but we still have the capsules, and I think the depth cannot be controlled. The ring spacing, okay, this is like kind of like the resampling of the capsules objects. Yeah, anyway, you got the drill. So same thing with these objects, these capsules along path. So with this technique, of course, you can actually have multiple curve. With the curve adaptive, you can only do it for one curve, unfortunately. But this guy over here, you can have multiple curve. So you can create like an art like this. Oh, if you use like with grease pencil, you can actually draw on top of the curve maybe, but you want to turn on surface snapping anyway. So you can draw one object and then you can draw on top of another object. So it's gonna kind of like a branching. Okay, and instead of using counts, you can use length. It's a pretty basic feature of geometry nodes that I'm showing you, but this is a kind of thing that I think geometry nodes is kind of excel at. So obviously I didn't create the capsules, but thanks to again to Bartek for sharing this setup. It's super handy setup. So the capsules can be reused for your own creations. In this case, just like a simple basic instancing, and also this weird creations, but still super handy. Look, you can actually generate numbers like that, and you can shift the number using SVerchok, right? It's a weird thing that there's a lot of weird thing that you can do with SVerchok and geometry nodes, and that's I haven't really touched most of them. So this is the capsule setups. But anyway, this part, something that I will talk again in the future videos on how to drive bones using geometry nodes and SVerchok. So like the spline IK, it's a basic concepts, but it might be useful if you, for example, like have a creatures with a lot of tentacles. You can use spline IK. For now, at least, you should understand how I created this, how to create something like this using capsules. All right, so hopefully you find this useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.